Hello again, welcome back everyone. Liquorhound here with you. Thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Rebel Yell 10-year-old single barrel bourbon. This is a wheater bourbon that is fairly new to the marketplace. Now I wanted to get this video shot for a few reasons. A, because it is a really good bourbon for a great price of around $45, very inexpensive. B, because it is still on store shelves. I know here in Texas it's only been here probably the last week or so. And C, because I actually mentioned it on a podcast interview I was on with Bourbon Pursuit. So bourbonpursuit.com, you can go there. I believe it was podcast 71, right around there. Anyway, in that interview, I actually discussed my nosing and tasting techniques into a little further detail. I talked about how I got started. And one of the final questions was, what are you going to be reviewing next? And I mentioned this bottle. Like I said, as you can tell by this fill level, hey, the homework has been done. I have been sharing this bottle with multiple friends and they've all been really enjoying it. And so I wanted to get this out for you, okay? Now, as far as Rebel Yell brand, the history behind it goes back and traces to Stetzel Weller beginnings. Back then, it was kind of a lower tier bourbon down there with cabin steel, that type thing. But as the years have gone by, the brand has been sold off. Now Luxco owns the brand. And for this specific bottling, what Luxco did was they actually sourced bourbon from Heaven Hill. And Luxco, if you don't know, they own, I believe, a 50% share in Limestone Branch Distillery there in Kentucky. And Limestone Branch was founded by Stephen and James Beam. Stephen was doing some really good distillations and blending prior to Luxco's joining them. But now that they're together, he's the one that's behind the Yellowstone 105, the Yellowstone Select, the Blood Oath packages, and stuff like that. And the Yellowstone 105 and Select, I really love once they oxidize. So open that bottle, get that level down just past the shoulder where it's got a lot of air to liquid contact, and then just let it sit for about a month or two. They really start hitting their strides. All right, now back to Rebel Yell 10 single barrel. Okay, so if we know this is sourced from Heaven Hill, that's going to mean it's probably going to be the Larceny mash bill. Larceny from Heaven Hill, a really great $20 wheater. No age statement though on Larceny. Now the mash bill behind that is going to be 68% corn, 20% wheat, and 12% malted barley. Okay, so that's what you have here in this mash bill. But again, Larceny, a batch product, no age statement. This a single barrel 10-year-old, so we know it's coming from one barrel. And if you look on the side here, it'll actually give you the barrel number. This happens to be 4744186. A lot of digits. Pay attention to the last three, because from what I can tell, the first digits are remaining the same on multiple barrels, but that one, the last three is what's changing, the 186 for this one in particular. Now, again, single barrel products, they're all going to be slightly different. One barrel might be a little better than others. One might be a spectacular barrel, and if you happen to buy one of these, taste it, and it does hit you like, wow, that is amazing. You probably should go back there and buy one or two more as backups, because once that barrel is gone, you're not going to see it anymore, okay? All right, so wheater bourbons in the marketplace. What are our options? We get Maker's Mark. We get W.L. Weller, the Special Reserve, the 107 Antique if you're lucky, and the Weller 12 if you're very lucky. Beyond those, and Larceny, that's about it for the major distilleries. If you want to get into craft distilleries, you can find some stuff there. But for the big boys, that's it. So to have one more joining it is a great thing. Now this is a limited release, but what that means is initially they're coming out with, I think, dropping 2,000 cases around the country. Next year, another 2,000 to 4,000 will probably drop, and it may become an annual thing, all right? Which is not, again, I am not complaining, because so far, if they keep the quality to this level, hey, I would love and welcome to taste more single barrels from them, all right? Okay, let's get to the actual nosing on the Rebel Yell 10. Wow, so sweet. That's the initial aromatic caramel, brown sugar, vanilla. Red berries popping out of the glass with some pretty big cinnamon and clove note as well. Search around. A little bit of chocolate. A little bit of chocolate and definitely some tobacco old leather kind of aromatics coming in as well. The oak is in there, but it's remaining pretty sweet and clean oak. So it's not too much oak. It's not soured or a musty type oak. It's very clean, fresh, integrating very well on the nose. Some dried character in here, dried fruit characters coming through on the aromatics. Maybe just like a real hint of like a dried cherry, dried fig type thing as well. Very complex on the nose. Let's go ahead and get to the tasting. Again, that first palate, don't judge it. Just kind of let it coat, let it go down, get your palate used to it. So very viscous. For a 100 proof bourbon, it's amazing how oily this is. I can't imagine what that was like coming out of the barrel. It must have been, wow. I mean, ridiculous, like almost George T. Stagg type category with how viscous this is and what I can imagine it being cask strength. Now the cinnamon spice, I will say that is kind of really building on the mid palate. But let me go ahead and back up, retaste, and see if I can get this in order for you and how it's hitting me on the palate. Very creamy, very viscous, entering caramel, brown sugar, a little bit of vanilla, but leaning more right there initially onto the red fruits, red berries, cherries, a little bit of a touch of raspberries, dried cherries. And then you get a little bit of that dried character as you start leaning right up into that mid palate where we're getting a growing cinnamon clove right underneath. A hint of a dried orange peel as well as that cinnamon grows. Now the cinnamon impact, while it gets very big on the mid palate, it recedes nicely, so it never gets too hot or start drying out. It's as it rolls over on the back end, now I'm getting a little bit of dark chocolate, leather, old leather, tobacco coming on. Not nearly as much tobacco as I get on Weller 12. Now, prior to shooting this video the other day, I was actually comparing this to the Weller 12, and I was kind of doing a back and forth, and I noticed that Weller 12 is very deep, round bourbon, nothing too spicy, a lot of dark character, brown sugar, dark fruits like, you know, figs and dried plums and dried cherries, dark chocolate, old leather, and a big tobacco note as well. Great bourbon, great value there as well if you can get it, but that was it. Like, it was pretty good. I mean, it was just round, big, great, simplistic bourbon. This one is more viscous than the Weller 12. Now, I have a 2015 Weller 12 that I'm comparing to this. More viscous, higher proof, more complex, but it's definitely spicier, okay? So that's the only drawback, is the spice level when this comes straight out of the bottle. Now, what I did do, and what I'm about to do right here, is add some water, and I added about 5 drops there. I'm going to try to bring this down to about 90 proof or so, which will be the equivalent to a Weller 12. Weller 12 90, this 100. So let's drop this down and see what happens. Now, as you can tell, we have done this a time or two before, and I pretty much know what to expect. And what's going to happen is, while the cinnamon level decreases, the viscosity actually holds up. It's not quite as oily as without water, as you would expect, but man, does it hold up, and it is still very, very creamy. So let's see here. On the nose, cinnamon, or I think I'm picking up more orange peel now, so maybe the citrus orange zest type thing pops a little more. The red fruits, the dried cherries pop a little more. But that cinnamon, while it's still noticeable, it's calmed a little bit. It's a little more mixed in with the oak that I was picking up earlier. To the palate. Wow, now it's getting a little bit of a, kind of almost like a buttery characteristic to the intro. maybe like a salted caramel as well. That's what happened with water. Salted caramel, brown sugar, still viscous. The cinnamon calms down. It's no longer like a spicy Saigon cinnamon. It's more like a baking spice type cinnamon, just kind of more integrated. And then you roll over with those fruits, and the dried fruits are still there. The cinnamon, the clove, the orange peel aspect. Rolling over it on the finish, you're getting maybe a little more bitter dark chocolate and a little touch of bitterness. Not bad at all. But you know, dark chocolate has that little bit of a bitter character. But it starts leaning, as soon as that passes, then you start leaning on this old leather and a little bit of a tobacco note. Now, not nearly as big tobacco as Weller 12, but it is there. So you kind of know what you're dealing with, you know, wheat being the second grain all along. Again, if you see this in your area, I think it is a definite buy, okay? Even though your barrel is going to be different than mine, I'm imagining it's going to be really good. Even if, you know, all barrels, some better than others, still $40, $45. That's a great buy in my opinion. So again, if this keeps coming out every year, I welcome it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep leaving those great comments. Everybody have a great evening, and cheers.